It's Earth Day today. On this 22nd of April, wishing you all a lovely Monday morning. Let's get this week started. Happy Earth Day. We have that and all kinds of information all available for you to take on the day. All right here on Community Radio Networks, and we are going to start with the world news coming up for you in just a minute. This is Community Radio Networks. The world news read by Shabnam Madgil. Even though Israel and Iran have signaled their intention to walk back down the escalation ladder following their limited but direct tit-for-tat strikes against each other since the 13th of this month, the world remains on edge due to concerns about the conflict swarming the entire Middle East. A crucial energy supply and a key shipping passageway, the region has been in the headlines since the beginning of Israel's assault on Gaza after Hamas attacked the Jewish state on the 7th of October. And ever since, Israel has laid a siege on the Gaza Strip and massacred more than 34,000 Palestinians, including thousands of children, besides causing widespread devastation and hunger. Israel abandoned plans for a much more extensive counterstrike on Iran after concerted diplomatic pressure from the United States and other foreign allies, and because the brunt of an Iranian assault on Israel's soil had been thwarted. Iran's supreme leader dismissed any discussion on whether Tehran's unprecedented drone and missile attack on Israel hit anything out there, a tacit acknowledgement that despite launching a major assault, few projectiles actually made it through to their targets. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's comments before senior military leaders didn't touch on the apparent Israeli retaliatory strike on the central city of Isfahan, even though air defenses opened fire and Iran grounded commercial flights across much of the country. Iranian supreme leader also has praised the Iranian armed forces in the highest terms following their attacks on Israel. Despite fierce protests from the society, Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi wants to maintain strict police checks on women for headscarf offenses. Iranian president has stated that his nation stands with Palestine. Addressing a joint press conference alongside Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif during an official visit to Pakistan, he said that Pakistan and Iran can no longer tolerate the oppression of Palestine in Gaza and the child killing by the Zionist Israeli regime with U.S. support. Israel's military intelligence chief has offered to resign today and is expected to formally step down eventually for his leadership role during the October 7th Hamas attacks that killed some 1,200 people, which has been criticized as a major Israeli intelligence failure. You can hear the sound of Israeli drones across Rafah, including reconnaissance aircraft flying low across the city. Health workers have uncovered at least 50 bodies of people killed and buried by Israeli forces at a hospital in the southern city of Khan Yunis. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned the horrific massacres committed by Israel following the uncovering of these mass graves in the courtyard of the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly requested French President Emmanuel Macron to revive talks with Lebanon to achieve peace along Israel's northern borders. Paris has been requested to revive its initiative to negotiate a deal between Israel and the Hezbollah for the withdrawal of terror groups from the northern border. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he would fight against sanctions being imposed on any Israeli military units for alleged rights violations in the West Bank. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to, within days, announce sanctions against the Israeli Defense Forces Netzar Yehuda Battalion for human rights violations in the occupied West Bank. The Netzar Yehuda Battalion was set up in 1999 to accommodate the religious beliefs of ultra-Orthodox Jews and the religious nationalist recruits in their army. President Zelensky and Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu have thanked U.S. lawmakers after they voted in favor of new aid packages for their countries worth billions of dollars. The bill was a part of a wider $95 billion package providing foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel, and the Indo-Pacific region, providing nearly $61 billion to help Ukraine and others in the region fight Russia, while the House also passed funding worth $26.4 billion for Israel and $8.1 billion to counter China's attacks and actions in the Indo-Pacific. The Kremlin has warned that American support for Ukraine could turn into a decade-long folly, urging the U.S. not to oppose its invasion of the country as Congress appears to pass that package. Outrage, point of no return, and absolute disaster are how some Muslim American organizers have described their reaction to this aid package for Israel that is making its way through Congress for President Joe Biden to sign into law. And many Muslim Americans already furious with the Biden administration over its handling of the Israel-Hamas war, with activists organizing Democrats to vote uncommitted rather than support the president in some state primaries this year. Israel's foreign minister Israel Katz says he's appalled by the vile wave of anti-Semitism among ongoing demonstrations at the Columbia University in New York against the conflict in Gaza. The diplomat urged officials to take action. The White House has strongly condemned the ongoing anti-Israel protests at Columbia University and other colleges across the U.S., labeling the actions as blatantly anti-Semitic and dangerous. And the House that passed that $95 billion package providing foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel, and the Indo-Pacific region. And we do have more than $3.3 billion that would go towards submarine infrastructure and development, with an additional $1.9 billion to replenish U.S. weapons provided to Taiwan and other regional allies. The Senate also passed a law reauthorizing part of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act after Friday's midnight deadline, overcoming opposition from privacy advocates and former President Trump. For the first time in history, prosecutors will present a criminal case against a former American president to a jury this morning as they accuse Donald Trump of a hush money scheme aimed at preventing damaging stories about his personal life from becoming public. A 12-person jury in Manhattan set to hear the opening statements from prosecutors and defense lawyers in the first of 4 criminal cases against the presumptive Republican presidential nominee to reach a trial. And the statements are expected to give jurors and the voting public the clearest view yet of the allegations at the heart of the case, as well as insight into Trump's expected defense. David Pecker, the former chairman of the National Enquirer's parent company, is expected to be the first witness in just a few minutes called by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in former President Trump's criminal hush money trial. New York Attorney General Letitia James has asked Judge Arthur Engeron to void the $175 million bond in Donald Trump's civil fraud judgment, citing concerns that the bond company does not have enough funds. And Maxwell Azzarello, the man who died after setting himself on fire while former President Trump's hush money trial was taking place, once worked for the Democrat congressman who flipped Republican George Santos's seat blue. The share of voters who say they have high interest in the 2024 election has hit a nearly 20-year low at this point in a presidential race. This according to the latest national NBC News poll, with majorities holding negative views of both President Trump and former President Biden and former President Trump. And the poll shows Biden trimming Trump's previous lead to just 2 points in a head-to-head contest. Nikki Haley welcomed her husband back to the U.S. after he completed his deployment with the South Carolina National Guard. Major Michael Haley, the husband of the former GOP presidential candidate, served as a staff officer with the 218th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade in the Horn of Africa during his deployment. His social media post also included photos of her and her children hugging her husband and holding a "Welcome Back, Dad" sign. 2 years after ending the national right to abortion by overturning Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court will scrutinize one of the marquee efforts by the Biden administration to preserve abortion access in the post-Roe v. Wade era. In a case being heard by the court on Wednesday, the Biden administration is challenging Idaho's enforcement of its abortion ban in medical emergencies, putting a spotlight on what has been one of the most politically explosive flashpoints in the aftermath of Roe's demise. The Supreme Court today will hear arguments on whether a U.S. city can fine or jail people for sleeping outside. The hearing comes amid a rise in housing costs and record levels of homelessness. Last year, more than 650,000 people in the U.S. were estimated to be homeless on any given night. Masked men stopped a vehicle carrying Mexico's leading presidential candidate while she was traveling between campaign stops yesterday to ask what she addressed the violence and in the southern state of Chiapas if she wins the June 2nd election. The former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum, the governing Morena Party's candidate, remained in the front passenger seat of the vehicle listening calmly with her window down. Masked men filmed the interaction on their cell phones and one shook her hand before letting her move on. The U.S. military will fully withdraw its roughly 1,000 troops from Niger after two sides failed to reach a deal, allowing American forces to remain in the country. The frayed alliance ends 8 months after the Niger military overthrew the government, a move eventually designated as an illegal coup by the U.S. A fourth and penultimate round of talks on a UN treaty to combat plastic pollution will begin in the Canadian capital of Ottawa tomorrow. Representatives from more than 170 countries are expected to attend the negotiations, which are scheduled to run until next Monday. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has strongly suggested that Russia intends to seize the city of Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine, making him the first senior Kremlin official to identify the city as a potential target outright. European Union countries possessing Patriot air defense systems appeared hesitant today to give any to Ukraine, which is desperately seeking at least 7 of the missile batteries to help fend off Russian air attacks. Russia's air force is vastly more powerful than Ukraine's, but sophisticated missile systems provided by Kyiv's Western partners can pose a major threat to Russian aviation as the Kremlin's forces slowly push forward along the roughly 1,000-kilometer front line in that war. European Union foreign and defense ministers are in Luxembourg today to discuss support for Ukraine, following U.S. lawmakers' approval of a nearly $61 billion aid package as well as sanctions against Iran for its attack on Israel and its arming of Russia. Hamburg's mayor is visiting Kyiv today in a show of support for the Ukrainian capital. The German politician arrived in Kyiv by train from Poland early this morning following an invitation from the mayor of Kyiv, and the trip had not been previously announced due to security reasons. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is to receive British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for talks in Berlin on Wednesday. The topics of the meeting at the Chancellery will include mutual relations, the Russian war against Ukraine, and the situation in the Middle East. Meanwhile, we do have a fire that has ripped through Denmark's historic Borsen, destroying nearly half of the 400-year-old former stock exchange building. The historic Copenhagen landmark, currently housing the Danish Chamber of Commerce, undergoing renovations when the fire started, and the cause remains unknown, and no deaths or injuries have been reported. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. Deadly floods are wreaking havoc in many parts of East Africa that face torrential rainfall, with Burundi calling for international help to deal with the aftermath. And nearly 60,000 residents in China's Guangdong province have been evacuated from their homes after extreme weather caused floods to sweep through a number of cities in the low-lying Pearl River Delta. Today, rescuers used boats to reach trapped residents, including the elderly, in China's most populous province, a manufacturing hub and a home to 127 million people. Major rivers, waterways and reservoirs in China's Guangdong province threatening to unleash these dangerous floods, forcing the government to enact emergency response plans to protect 127 million people. China has accused the U.S. of stoking military confrontation with the recent deployment of a powerful missile launcher capable of firing weapons with a range of up to 1,600 kilometers to exercises in the Philippines. And Australian swimming coach Dennis Cotterill has rejected allegations of orchestrated doping in Chinese swimming, saying the East Asian nation is adamant about the clean sport. He's working with China's top swimmers in the lead-up to the Paris Olympics and previously coached 1,500 meters freestyle world record holder Sun Yang, who is now suspended for a doping offense. No one can know the mind of Sydney shopping mall killer Joel Cauchi, but psychiatrists say one underlying cause of his rampage is evident. He had schizophrenia, stopped his medication, and fell out of treatment. People have searched for a fathomable motive since that April 13th knife attack at the Bondi Junction, in which 5 women and a male security guard were stabbed to death and another dozen wounded, including a 9-month-old girl. Indonesia's top court this morning rejected appeals lodged by two losing presidential candidates who are demanding a revote, alleging widespread irregularities and fraud at the February polls. The 5-3 majority decision by the 8-judge panel of the Constitutional Court rejected the argument, saying the legal teams of the losing candidates had failed to prove allegations that Prabowo Subianto's victory was the result of widespread fraud. This news out of Jakarta. A person was killed and 3 others wounded in an explosion in Kabul, with the Islamic State group claiming responsibility for this sticky bomb attack. The improvised explosive device detonated in the Kote Sangi neighborhood near an enclave of the historically persecuted Shia Hazara community, which has been targeted by the militant group in the past. The United Nations urged Sri Lanka to bridge its accountability deficit and ensure justice as the country commemorated the 279 victims of its worst ever attack against civilians 5 years ago. The UN's top envoy to the country told a remembrance service in Colombo that there should be a thorough and transparent investigation to uncover those behind that Easter carnage in 2019. Bombers hit 3 churches and 3 hotels in the island's deadliest suicide attack aimed at civilians, but grieving families say they are still waiting for justice. Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu's political party has swept parliamentary elections in a strong endorsement of its pro-China foreign policy. The People's National Congress won 70 out of the 93 seats in yesterday's vote, and along with 3 seats secured by its allies, has taken absolute control of Parliament. The Maldivian Democratic Party, led by former President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih, who is seen as pro-India, held 65 seats in the previous parliament but won only 15 seats. And it is in a significant shift in the Indian Ocean's geopolitical dynamics that the Maldives president's pro-China People's National Congress secured this landslide victory in the parliamentary elections today, signaling a stronger alignment with Beijing over traditional ally India. Around 65,960 Indians have formally become U.S. citizens, making India the second largest source country for new citizens in America after Mexico, as per this recent congressional report suggesting that 42% of Indian-born nationals in the U.S. are currently ineligible to become U.S. citizens. In a significant move, the Ministry of External Affairs has directed passport authorities to issue a revocation order for individuals from Goa and Daman and Diu who had their Indian passports revoked after acquiring Portuguese citizenship. This decision could offer relief to many who were rendered ineligible to apply for the OCI due to the previous passport requirements. And on Earth Day today, Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's commitment to environmental protection and talked about Mission Life, a lifestyle change for environment protection on Earth Day today. BJP's Mukesh Dalal got elected unopposed from Surat Lok Sabha seat after all other candidates withdrew from the fray. Surat has presented the first lotus to Prime Minister Modi. Preparations are on for Prime Minister Modi's rally in Agra on the 25th of this month. The BJP is aiming for a gathering of 2 lakh people, bringing workers from every booth to the rally. And we do have Prime Minister Modi been accused of delivering Islamophobic remarks during an election rally yesterday, triggering widespread anger from prominent Muslims and members of the opposition. The world's most populous nation is in the midst of a mammoth weeks-long election in which Modi's ruling BJP is widely expected to secure a rare 3rd consecutive term. Speaking in front of a large crowd in Rajasthan, Prime Minister Modi said if voted into power, the country's main opposition, the Indian National Congress, would distribute the country's wealth among infiltrators and those who have more children, in apparent reference to the Muslim community. The opposition attacked Prime Minister Modi over his illegal immigrants remarks made at this election rally, and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi said that the BJP was trying to divert from real issues, while the Shiva Sena leader Sanjay Raut said Prime Minister Modi had become disillusioned. 8 polling stations across the Arunachal Pradesh area have been marked for repolling after the Election Commission of India declared the initial polling void. They have taken the decisive action in response to reports of EVM damage and violence during polling in the state. 9 years after his dramatic arrest at Bali airport and subsequent extradition to India, the first photograph of underworld Don Chota Rajan has surfaced, showing him in a healthy state. He's currently lodged in a high-security cell in jail number 2 of Tihar jail. And while the photograph dispels rumors of his death during COVID pandemic or his ill health, it's released at this stage and has so rekindled fears of an attack on him in jail, leaving the intelligence agencies alarmed. The Tihar administration stated that senior All India Institute of Medical Science specialist had provided online consultation to Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal hours after the Aam Aadmi Party alleged that adequate medical facilities were not being given to him as part of a conspiracy by the centre to kill him. A Delhi court rejected his plea seeking direction to Tihar jail authorities to administer him insulin and allow him to consult his doctors through video conferencing daily for 15 minutes. In a recent development regarding the firing incident outside actor Salman Khan's residence on the 14th of this month, the Mumbai crime branch has reached Surat to search for the guns which the accused used in firing at the actor's house. And during these interrogations, the accused told the crime branch that after committing the crime, they had thrown the gun into the Tapi River of Surat. The controversial decision that led to the dismissal of Virat Kohli yesterday in the IPL match between Kolkata Knight Riders and the Royal Challengers Bengaluru has left the batting legend fuming, as he not only just let his anger and displeasure be known to the umpires, but also on his way back to the dressing room. The ongoing IPL 2024 season witnessed another twist in the toss-tampering saga as the Kolkata Knight Riders clashed with Royal Challengers Bengaluru at the Eden Gardens yesterday, and the controversy began earlier in the tournament with Faf du Plessis himself at the centre. Speaking at a press conference alongside Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, who's currently in Pakistan for a 3-day official visit, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has urged Muslim nations to raise their voice against the atrocities being committed in Gaza. Iran and Pakistan have decided to increase the trade volume between the two countries to $10 billion. Mark Chapman hit a robust half-century to help an under-strength New Zealand to a shock 7-wicket victory over Pakistan in the third 2020 international in Rawalpindi yesterday. And Pakistan Cricket Board Chairman Mohsin Naqvi has said that an independent medical board had been constituted to probe the handling of young fast bowler Ehsanullah's injury. He made a big impact in last year's Pakistan Super League with his pace and subsequently went on to make his debut in 3 T20 matches against Afghanistan in Sharjah and 2 ODIs at home against New Zealand. And Pakistan's captain Nida Dar's a significant milestone of becoming the second bowler from the country to claim 100 one-day international wickets was sourced by the West Indies' 2-wicket victory in the second ODI against the hosts at the National Bank Stadium. And the ruling PMLN today emerged victorious in by-elections that were held on 21 national and provincial seats, according to provisional results released by the Election Commission of Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you. But what I will have is some financial news, and that's going to be coming up for you in just a bit. Stay with us right here, and we will get you all that information that you need to take on the day today. Let's play some music here for you while I get you the financial news, and it should not take more than a minute here for all this information to get to you. Let's get you now all the financial news that you need to know for today. And today is, of course, Earth Day. Wishing you all a very, very happy Earth Day today. We do have lots of information coming up for you. Let's get you first your foreign currency exchange rates. We have the Indian rupee at 83.39, Pakistani rupee 278.50, Bangladeshi taka at 109.78, the Sri Lankan rupee at 300.68, Nepalese rupee 133.48, the British pound at 0.81, the euro at 0.94, the Canadian dollar 1.37, Australian dollar 1.55, Mexican peso 17.18, Chinese yuan 7.24, Japanese yen 154.75, the Russian ruble at 93.16, Thai baht 37.08, and the Turkish lira at 32.50. U.S. stocks eyeing a recovery this morning from their worst week of the year, with the S&P 500 turning upbeat as investors brace for a flood of corporate earnings. S&P 500 futures have rose 0.5%, having closed below 5,000 on Friday for the first time since February amid 6 straight days of losses. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures also added 0.5%, while contracts in the tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 put on 0.6%. The market rally is at its most fragile point in months. S&P 500 ended below 5,000, its first close below that mark since late February, and the Nasdaq dropped more than 5% on the week, while the Dow held flat. Gold fell as geopolitical tensions eased in the Middle East, sparing haven demand, and traders looked ahead to U.S. data that will shed light on the outlook for monetary policy. The bullion dropped more than 2% to trade near $2,345 an ounce after a 5-week rally, the longest such streak in more than a year. While Israel and Iran have traded attacks, raising concerns about an all-out war in the region, Tehran has played down the impact and significance of Israel's recent strikes. Mortgage rates expected to drop this year, according to experts. So why did Freddie Mac report this week that rates leaped from 6.88% to 7.01%, the highest of the year so far? The federal government is for the first time requiring nursing homes to have minimum staffing levels after the COVID-19 pandemic exposed grim realities in poorly staffed facilities for older and disabled Americans. Vice President Kamala Harris announced the final rules this morning before a trip to La Crosse in Wisconsin, where she's going to talk to nursing home care employees about their work. In the battleground state, she also will hold a campaign event focused on abortion rights. Business leaders are sending a warning to staff dissent that disrupts the workplace won't be tolerated. Google's decision to fire 28 workers involved in sit-in protests against the tech giant's cloud computing contract with the Israeli government is the most recent and starkest example of companies' stricter stance. In a world where digital technology and nature intersect, Google has once again captured the essence of our planet's beauty and the urgency of its preservation through its Earth Day 2024 doodle this morning. This year, the search engine giant took to the skies, employing the power of aerial photography to craft a doodle that is both a visual feast and a poignant reminder of the environmental challenges that we are facing. Today, as individuals around the globe celebrate Earth Day, Google's homepage adorned with a series of stunning aerial shots, each one highlighting the diverse and rich landscape that our Earth harbors, from the turquoise waters of the Turks and Caicos Islands to the vast icy expanses of the national park in Iceland. And these images selected for the doodle serve as a proof of the planet's natural splendor. Tesla fell more than 3% in pre-market trading this morning as its latest global price cuts fanned Wall Street concerns about dwindling margins at the EV maker in the run-up to its earning report later this week. The company slashed prices by up to $2,000 on its vehicles such as the Model 3 and the Model Y in several markets, including the US, China, and Germany over the weekend, in its latest effort to push demand slowed by high interest rates. Investors are waiting clarity from CEO Elon Musk on Tesla's strategy after he cut 10% of the company's staff last week and said focusing on autonomous driving was a blindingly obvious move. He had earlier this month announced an event to unveil robotaxi after a Reuters report said Tesla had scrapped its plan to develop its long-awaited affordable EV in favor of robotaxis. Musk said the report that Reuters is lying without citing any inaccuracies. Tesla is likely in for some fresh legal entanglements after recommending stockholders vote to reinstate CEO Elon Musk's multi-billion-dollar compensation package, no matter what the final tally reveals at the company's June annual meeting. His pay was struck down in January by a Delaware judge who found that the Tesla's directors had breached their fiduciary duty when they awarded him the largest compensation opportunity ever granted to a public company executive. The ruling came after a shareholder sued to challenge that pay package. Tesla has announced aggressive price cuts in China and Germany shortly after reducing the prices in U.S. as the world's largest maker of electric vehicles faces declining sales and growing competition in major markets. Elon Musk, meanwhile, has postponed his planned trip to India, citing very heavy obligations at the company. He was due to arrive this week for a visit that was expected to include a meeting with Prime Minister Modi and confirmation that Tesla will build a factory in the world's most populous country. And we do have Verizon Communications saying this morning they lost fewer than expected wireless subscribers in the first quarter thanks to its flexible plans and streaming bundles offering discounted pricing for services such as Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery Max. Shares of the U.S. telecom firm risen 2.5% in pre-market trading this morning. Broadcom's critics rejected the U.S. chipmaker's changes to its cloud licensing practices, saying they do not address their complaints about alleged price hikes, unfair software licensing terms, and tying products together. Salesforce Inc.'s takeover talks with the Informatica Inc. have cooled, with both parties struggling to agree to terms. And travel firm Viking Holdings has said this morning that it is seeking a valuation of up to $10.8 billion in its IPO in the U.S. as it joins a slew of companies looking to take advantage of a rebound in the capital market. Starbucks has unveiled a new lineup of cups, which the company says will reduce the number of plastic waste in landfills by 13.5 million pounds. The new cups were announced ahead of Earth Day today, and the company shared in a press release that the cups are made up with up to 20% less plastic and will also require less water to make. Joining the likes of her husband, former First Lady Melania Trump has decided to dip her toes into the merchandise machine, launching a customizable Mother's Day necklace. The $245 necklace is called Her Love and Gratitude and became available yesterday on her website. It features a flower pendant and adjustable chain that can be engraved with names, initials, or significant dates. And of course, just to remind you all that Mother's Day is just weeks away, falling on the 12th of May this year. Every year since the year 2000, the Library of Congress has picked 25 recordings as audio treasures worthy of preservation for all time. This year's selections for the National Recording Registry announced celebrate the sheer breadth of musical culture, from pop culture favorites like ABBA, Green Day, and the notorious Big, to more niche recordings that provide snapshots of the American experience. Taylor Swift can't quit breaking her own records after Spotify revealed that the Tortured Poets Department had become the first album in the DSP's history to amass 200 million streams in a single day. The service updated that news to report that first-day streams had actually surpassed 300 million when all was said and done and counted. The North Central Texas Council of Governments is pursuing an innovative way of combating congestion on area roadways, applying for a $20 million federal grant. The pilot program would initially focus on 5 congested roadways: US 75, 635, 35E, 35W, and I-30. For the first time in decades, the San Francisco Zoo will welcome giant pandas from China as part of the country's panda diplomacy program. Conservative Brazilians he praised on Elon Musk at a rally in support of far-right former President Jair Bolsonaro, whose legal troubles are mounting in tandem with the billionaire entrepreneur's feud with the South American nation's Supreme Court. Brazil thanks Elon Musk, read one giant sign in English at the rally alongside Copacabana Beach in the seaside city of Rio de Janeiro. Thousands of die-hard supporters of Bolsonaro attended. Musk, a self-declared free speech absolutist, is a target in an ongoing investigation over the dissemination of fake news by supporters of Bolsonaro. Musk said the social platform X wouldn't comply with a High Court justice's order to remove certain accounts accused of spreading disinformation. If you are a remote worker who wishes you could trade in your drab home office for one overlooking the scenic Amalfi Coast of vineyards of Tuscany, you just may be in luck. Italy is offering a new digital nomad visa that allows Americans to relocate for up to a year, with the option to renew annually. Without a visa, foreigners can only stay in Italy for up to 90 days and they cannot work. Australia's Macquarie Group launched an EV financing platform for India today that will focus 95% of its $1.5 billion investment on electrifying fleets of commercial vehicles. The platform is called Vertilo and will offer financing, fleet management, and charging infrastructure solutions. Apple's 2 India-based company-owned stores, which recently celebrated their first anniversary, have each generated impressive revenues in the previous fiscal year, placing them among the top-performing retail outlets of the iPhone maker worldwide. Major Indian jewelry brands continue their expansion in the U.S. despite challenging economic and geopolitical situations. Brands focusing on luxury and premium segments are betting on the rapidly growing market and the big-ticket purchases by the wealthy Indian diaspora. Tata's group Tanishq opened 3 stores in the U.S. They have plans to open more. Chennai-based Vumidi Bangaru Jewelers plans to open 3 more outlets in the U.S. from its operational store right here in Frisco, Texas. And Vodafone Idea's 18,000 crore rupee follow-on public offer, the largest in India's history, was fully subscribed on the 3rd day. Global institutional investors like GQG Capital Group and Fidelity Investment showed high interest in the telecom company. Insurance regulator IRDA is pushing companies to ensure that health covers are available to all age groups as well as those with pre-existing diseases, mental health issues, and and women to ensure that there is greater coverage and no one is denied that facility. Bandhan Financial Holdings has renamed Aegon Life Insurance to Bandhan Life after acquiring the life insurer as part of its growth strategy, and the new company has charted a 5-year plan to become a multi-channel life insurer. Will recruit 1,000 new employees soon. The blistering heat has spurred the sale of consumer durables, with industry players looking at the best summit in several years. Demands for air conditioners, now a must-have in middle-class homes, and air coolers has spiked, and there is robust sale of refrigerators. This according to Godrej Appliances. Pakistani and Iranian leaders today vowed to strengthen relations and enhance bilateral trade to $10 billion a year, leaving behind recent airstrikes against each other and ignoring possible new sanctions against the Persian Republic. It is Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi who said that the existing volume was not acceptable, and so increasing the trade volume between the two countries to $10 billion. He's currently on a 3-day visit to Pakistan and made the remarks during a joint press conference alongside Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif after the two held a meeting in Islamabad. Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb has stated that Pakistan is on track to secure a new loan from the International Monetary Fund, adding that the money lender had been very receptive in terms of agreeing to consider a larger, longer program. He also has stated that the process of privatizing PIA will be finalized by the end of June or early July. It is Foreign Minister Ishaq Daru has justified the government's move to block access to social media platform X, saying that it was the government's prerogative to take actions that are in the best interest of Pakistan. Pakistan's stock exchange benchmark KSE 100 index traded at a record high after earlier breaching the key 71,000 level, and they reached a new all-time high today, with the benchmark index trading at 71,474 points. In the run-up to the finalization of the federal budget for 2024 and 25, the Ministry of Finance in Islamabad has asked all ministries, divisions, departments and self-governing entities to surrender by the 15th of May the funds that they think cannot be utilized within the current fiscal year, which ends on the 30th of June. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you, but I do have your final segment of the program coming up for you with all the information you need to take on the day today and get this week started on Earth Day today. Okay, let's do this final segment of our program today. Today is Monday, and it is Earth Day, the 22nd of April. We are going to go ahead and start off this morning. We have started this morning rather chilly with our temperatures falling into the 40s, but today is going to be a beautiful day with plenty of sunshine, and our afternoon highs will top out in the low 70s, below average for this time of the year, though the average high is 77. And we will start off tomorrow in the low to mid 50s as the south winds pick up. It'll be a breezy day tomorrow with highs approaching 80 and a weak front, and it'll stall along the Red River late in the day. So that's what our weather looks like for today. Early voting for the May 4th election has started across Texas today and runs through Tuesday, the 30th of April. So if you're planning to vote early, remember to bring your ID to the polls. And Texas allows 7 forms of ID to be used, including a valid Texas driver's license, Texas DPS election iCard, Texas handgun license, U.S. military aid, and a U.S. passport. And of course, Election Day is on Saturday, the 4th of May. I do want to remind you all about the supporters of community radio networks, and I have huge thanks going out to Discount Power, to Houston EB5, to the Aluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinza Law, Mike Kalachi, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Eggholic, Mystic Mandala, and Flash Brush Productions. Huge thanks going out for their support of community radio networks. And the Shruti Sangeet Academy has vocal lessons in Indian classical music by certified classical vocalist and talk show host Shanta Mishra. You can explore the soul of Indian music, and as they offer comprehensive curriculums with personalized instructions and an immersion in bhajans, shlokas, and folk music. You can learn classical ragas, master vocal techniques, embrace rhythm and tal, experience Indian culture like never before. Let me give you Shanta Mishra's number. It's 612-562-4432. You can also send her an email, shantamishra10@gmail.com. There is an organization called Color Me Safe Foundation, a family crisis management organization serving the greater Dallas area. And they've launched 2 new educational initiatives. One is called Ask Auntie, and the other is Sati Support Group. Through discussion on topics such as generational and cultural gaps, cultural identity, mental health, bullying, and many more, these programs seek to empower South Asian children and families with the tools and understanding to overcome these shared challenges in a very supportive and non-judgmental space. ColorMeSafeFoundation.org. We also do have some events that are happening as we get ready to make your social calendar out here on community radio networks. We have this weekend a program that will be happening on the 23rd, actually, this week. It is the Hanuman Jayanti celebrations at the Sri Ram Mandir in Plano on the 23rd. Starting today, we have Earth X 2024, the Congress of Conferences. That is starting today at the Hilton Anatole all week, 22nd to the 26th. You can discover the evolution of EarthX at this year's Congress of Conferences and the leading gathering for environmentalists of all backgrounds and perspectives. At EarthX, an unprecedented cross-pollination of people, power, and perspectives are fostered, and the potential is unrivaled. Every idea finds a home so long as it expressed with respect to cultivate learning, understanding, and the common goal of safeguarding life on Earth. It is starting today until the 26th of this month. We also want you all to know that Jeet Ka Safar with the Amax Champions is happening this weekend on the 26th. And for more information, you can call Andy Lalane at 817-883-33 33. And this weekend, 2 days, 26th and 27th, Friday and Saturday, they have 3 shows of Neetu Chandra as Omrao Jan Ada, a West End musical play in the Broadway style that is based on this novel written by Mirza Hadi Ruswa. Festival of Joy is happening this weekend, and that you all are familiar with at the Clyde Warren Park on Saturday, the 27th of April, and more information is available at festivalofjoydallas.com. Festival of India by the Lions Club, the Dallas Indian Lions Club, is happening this Sunday, and that is going to be in Plano. We also have the DFW Gujarati Samaj presenting a non-stop comedy drama with renowned artist Sri Sanjay Goradia. That's happening on the 5th of May at 5 o'clock at the McKinney North High School with lighter refreshments available for purchase. And you need to get your tickets quickly for this Gujarati drama. Indian Idol's Intense Tour on the 10th of May at the Grand Centre, and Unforgettable 90s by Kumar Sanu and Sadhana Sargam on Sunday, the 12th of May. We do have Junoon show in Dallas on the 19th of May. And on the 23rd of May, there's an annual technology conference being brought to you by the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce, featuring keynote speaker Chakri Gotamakulla, also featuring a CIO panel, an AI startup panel, expo booths, networking, and plenty more. All this happening on the 23rd of May. And then on the 8th and 9th of June, there's a 2-day holistic festival of life and wellness that is being brought to you by Mystic Mandala at the Plano Nature and Retreat Center. For more information, you can call Vijay at 972-750-1419. Badshah's Pagal Tour is happening at the Curtis Culwell Center on Friday, the 14th of June. And Shreya Ghoshal will be live at the Curtis Culwell Center on Sunday, the 16th of June. Shilpa Shetty coming into town on the 29th of June. And as we get closer to these dates, we'll have more details coming up for you, but that's what your social calendar looks like right now. Before I end my show for today, let's get you some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is Earth Day, the 22nd of April. It was way back in 1876 on today's date that the Boston Red Caps beat the Philadelphia Athletics 6-5 in the first official National League baseball game. The game, which lasts a little more than 2 hours, is played in favorable weather before 3,000 fans at the Athletics grounds at 25th and Jefferson Street. Great interest was manifested in the result, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, as it really was the first game of importance played this season. The Athletics should have won the game, the newspaper added, but their fielding was poor. Betting on the game was about even, according to the Inquirer. While this was the first official National League game, the teams were not the first in professional basketball. The first pro team was in 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Nor was the National League the first major professional baseball league. The first league was the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, formed in 1871. But here it was, on today's date in 1876, this was the Boston Red Caps beating the Philadelphia Athletics 6-5 in the first official National League baseball game. Ohio passes a statute that criminalizes seduction by all men over the age of 18 who worked as teachers or instructors of women. The law even prohibited men from having consensual sex with women of any age whom they were instructing. The penalty for disobeying this law ranged from 2 to 10 years in prison. Ohio's seduction law was not the first of its kind. A Virginia law made it illegal for a man to have an illicit connection with any unmarried female of previous chaste character if the man did so by promising to marry the girl. But it was Ohio criminalizing seduction by male teachers on today's date in the year 1886. Now, when World War I started in 1915, on today's date, German forces shocked the Allied soldiers along the Western Front by firing more than 150 tons of lethal chlorine gas against 2 French colonial divisions in Belgium. This was the first major gas attack by the Germans, and it devastated the Allied line. Toxic smoke has been used occasionally in warfare since ancient times, and the French had used small amounts of tear gas in police operations. At the outbreak of World War I, the Germans began actively to develop chemical weapons. And on today's date, in 1915, lethal chlorine gas was fired against 2 French colonial divisions in Belgium. We have on today's date in 1945. Now, this is the end of World War II, when Adolf Hitler, learning from one of his generals that no German defense was offered to the Russian assault at Eberswald, admits to all in his underground bunker that the war is lost and that suicide is his only recourse. Almost as confirmation of his assessment, a Soviet mechanized corps reaches there, 40 miles southwest of Berlin, liberates a POW camp, and releases, among others, the Norwegian Commander-in-Chief Otto Rouge. But it was Hitler admitting defeat on today's date in 1945. Earth Day that we've been talking about today, an event to increase public awareness of the world's environmental problems, is celebrated in the U.S. for the first time in 1970. Millions of Americans, including students from thousands of colleges and universities, participated in rallies, marches, and educational programs across the country. Earth Day was the brainchild of Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin, a staunch environmentalist who hoped to provide unity to the grassroots environmental movement and increase ecological awareness. And it's celebrated today also. It is on today's date in 1990, when it was the 20th anniversary of Earth Day. There more than 200 million people in 141 countries participated in those celebrations, and Senator Nelson was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Clinton. He died in 2005. Earth Day has been celebrated on different days by different groups internationally. The UN officially celebrates it on the vernal equinox, which usually occurs about the 21st of March. But happy Earth Day to all of you today. It was started on today's date in 1970. And in 1978, on today's date, international reggae superstar Bob Marley, he headlines the One Love Peace concert. That happened on today's date in the year 1978. And that was at the National Stadium in Kingston. And that is in Jamaica. It was Bob Marley out there who highlighted that concert in Jamaica. The lineup that included 16 reggae stars that day in this One Love Peace concert. Sixteen reggae acts, including Bob Marley, with a common goal to restore peace to the Caribbean island nation, a former British colony then roiling with political strife. And that was the One Love Peace concert, in which Bob Marley was the headliner. Nearly 35,000 spectators converged in Kingston's National Stadium to hear performances by these reggae stars, both established and emerging. And the show's climax came during the song Jamming, when Bob Marley called rival politicians on stage and held their hands aloft together to symbolize love, peace, and unity. And the two men on whose behalf hundreds, if not thousands, had been killed appeared uncomfortable. While the event itself unfolded peacefully, it did nothing to alleviate Jamaica's deep political divisions or quell its political violence, which soared in subsequent years. Marley, of course, died of cancer. On today's date, the 22nd of April in 1978, Saturday Night Live showcased the worldwide television debut of the Blues Brothers, the not quite real, not quite fake musical creation of SNL cast members Dan Aykroyd and also John Belushi. And the duo came complete with a made-up origin story, according to SNL's Paul Schaefer, who introduced the new act. It was Marshall Checker of the legendary Checker Brothers, whose
2, 3, 4.
discovery in this gritty blues club of Chicago's South Side handed them this big break 9 years later.
Glad to see so many of you lovely people here tonight. We would especially like to welcome all the representatives of Illinois' law enforcement community who have chosen to join us here.
This introduction to music industry heavyweight and host of television's rock concert, Don Kirshner.
No matter who you are,
And the characters and the band that Belushi and Aykroyd unveiled that night took more than 2 years to evolve.
you, me, them, everybody.
On today's date in 1978, Saturday Night Live showcased the worldwide television debut of the Blues Brothers.
Need somebody to love, someone to love,
Someone to love,
sweetheart to miss,
sweetheart to miss,
sugar to kiss.
sugar to kiss.
I need you, I need you, I need you in the morning.
Dozens of sewer explosions in Guadalajara, Mexico, killed more than 200 people and damaged 1,000 buildings on the 22nd of April in 1992. The series of explosions was caused by a gas leak, the warning signs of which were ignored by the Mexican government as well as the national oil company. 3 days prior, the residents of a working-class neighborhood in Guadalajara had noticed a foul smell in the air. They experienced stinging in their eyes and throats, and some felt nauseous. Despite these complaints, the local authorities did not seriously investigate this issue. And about 11:30 a.m. on today's date in 1992, a series of powerful explosions began, and they took place in an area about a mile long and seemed to come from 35 feet below ground along the sewer system. 20 square blocks of Guadalajara were leveled or seriously damaged. In two places, craters nearly 300 feet deep opened up, swallowing the surrounding buildings, roads, cars, and buses. Children home for Easter break were a substantial portion of the casualties, and it took a week to find and record the deaths and injuries. 1,500 people were hospitalized, and 25,000 had to be evacuated. Happened in Mexico on today's date in 1992. And then in 1994, on today's date, former President Nixon dies after suffering a stroke 4 days earlier. In a 1978 speech at the Oxford University, he admitted he had messed up during his presidency, but predicted that his achievements would be viewed more favorably with time, and told the young audience, "You'll be here in the year 2000. See how I am regarded then." He is most often remembered for his involvement in the Watergate scandal as president and for his Cold War era persecution of suspected communists while serving as a U.S. senator. However, Nixon left a legacy as complex as his personality. Did not owe his success in politics to personality or charm. In fact, even many of his staunch supporters described him as cold, aloof, crude, arrogant, and paranoid. President Eisenhower himself, whom Nixon served as vice president, claimed that Nixon would never win the presidency because the people don't like him. After proving his former boss wrong, he left the office in disgrace, resigning in the face of impending impeachment, and his paranoia of political sabotage by his opponents had inspired him to authorize the wiretapping of enemies and supporters alike. And ironically, it was the conversations he taped in his own office that led to his ultimate downfall. Nixon and his wife, Pat, are both buried on the grounds of his birthplace in Yorba Linda, California. The site is also the home of Richard Milhous Nixon Presidential Library. The former president died on today's date in 1994. And in 1997, in Lima, Peru, Peruvian President Fujimori orders a commando assault on the Japanese ambassador's home, hoping to free 72 hostages held for more than 4 months by armed members of the Tupac Amaru leftist rebel movement. It is after secretly warning the hostages 10 minutes before the attack that the Special Forces team set off a blast in a tunnel underneath the building, which surprised the rebels and killed 8 of the 14 immediately. The rest of the elite soldiers attacked from several other directions, overwhelming the remaining terrorists. And all 14 rebels were killed in that assault, and it was one hostage who was also killed. And of the several soldiers wounded during the rescue operation, 2 later died from their injuries. But it was the Peruvian president Fujimori who ordered this assault on Japanese ambassador's home on the 22nd of April in 1997. Pat Tillman, who gave up his pro football career to enlist in the U.S. Army after the terrorist attacks of September the 11th, is killed by friendly fire while serving in Afghanistan on today's date in the year 2004. The news that Pat Tillman, who was only 27 years old, was mistakenly gunned down by his fellow Rangers rather than enemy forces was initially covered up by the U.S. military. Patrick Daniel Tillman, who was killed in friendly fire in Afghanistan on today's date in 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, these were some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 22nd of April, that we are observing as Earth Day today, right here. And we hope that you got all the information that you need to take on the day today. For those of you who would like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754. And this is Community Radio Networks. Our website is crn.guru. You can listen to us live on YouTube also every morning. And after the show is done, it is available on about 15 different platforms for you to listen to.